welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to take my glasses off because they are super glary. Today we are going to be going through all of the books that I read in August. Now, August for me, which, okay, bit of history if you haven't been here before or seen my other videos. July I read a total of 3 books and 2 of those were audiobooks. So July honestly just was not the best reading month for me. However, August on the other hand, I have read the most books in August than I have read in a single month ever. I read 8 books this month, which I think is just ridiculous. I will say, and I'm gonna make this a disclaimer right now, 5 of those books, I believe, were actually audiobooks. I do a lot of driving, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So I will say that one of my favorite things this month has been Audible because they have allowed me to read lots of my TBR pile. Not sponsored by Audible, I don't have an affiliate link, I wish that I did. So without any further preamble, I will get on with the books that I've read because I have quite a few to talk about. So the first book that I completed in August was Castle in the Air by Diana Wynne Jones. This is the second book in the Howl's Moving Castle trilogy. I read this one in a physical copy. It was this book. It is not necessarily a sequel to Howl's Moving Castle, but it is a companion novel. And the Howl's Moving Castle characters do make an appearance in this book. However, it's not until later on and it's not a huge part of the story. I've already spoken about this before, I'm pretty sure, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically it follows a boy named Abdullah. He is a carpet merchant in a bazaar. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he goes on this fantastical journey after receiving a magic carpet to find the princess of his dreams, basically. It's a very whimsical Aladdin-esque type of book. I enjoyed it. I did find it a bit, I don't know, trudgy because I also don't really like Aladdin as a story, and it was kind of similar to that. I was not really into the characters of this book. I think a strength of Howl's Moving Castle is that the characters are very likable and followable. The main character is quite interesting, but I couldn't relate to him very well, and I didn't super like any of the other characters either. The story did improve drastically once the original guys came back into this one briefly, and it was a very easy book to read. But I did give this book a 3 out of 5 stars because I did enjoy it and it was quite whimsical and lovely and very well written. The next book that I completed was an audiobook and it was A Court of Wings and Ruin. Again, I think I've already read this twice before, so this was a reread. This is the 3rd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J Maas. If you have not heard of this series, I recommend that you try to read the first one and then definitely read the second one. This is a story based in the world of Fae, and Fae and humans are, I don't know, there's just a lot of tension going on between them. And this is the concluding novel, and there's lots of politics and magic and fantasy and very, very graphic, feisty romance in this as well. Definitely not a YA book, definitely an adult book, even though it's marketed as YA every time. My rating for this book has not changed. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars when I first read it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars this time I read it. The next book that I completed was a physical book, and it is A House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. This is actually the sequel to Howl's Moving Castle. This is the 3rd book in the 3 books that she's written in this world. This book follows a young girl named Charmaine. Now, I read probably the first 50 pages of this book as her name as being Chairman, and then I continued to call her Chairman for the rest of the book. Anyway, so Chairman is a lovely young girl who ends up going to house sit for a family friend. I think he may have been an uncle, can't exactly remember, but his house is quite magical and it's folded in many, many different dimensions, which means that the house has lots of rooms where you wouldn't think they would be. You've got to turn like the right number of steps around the corner to get to certain places. It's all very whimsical, very magical. I enjoyed this one much more than Castle in the Air. I found the characters a little bit more likable in this one, and the original Howl's Moving Castle characters make much more of an appearance in this book, having it be the sequel. Charmaine is basically preoccupied with reading and that's all she wants to do. She ends up getting a job at the King's Library of the town that she lives in to help him with filing different court paperworks and what have you. Following this, Sophie actually makes an appearance as the crown daughter's friend of a long time, and there's this really nice mystery that unravels, and it's all very, very Howl's Moving Castle, this one. It is definitely the sequel. Once again, this book was quite easy to read. I will say it is very similar, I guess, story and reveal wise to Howl's Moving Castle a bit, and that seems to be a trope that runs throughout this entire series quite closely, but this one happens quite early in the book and it actually intertwines in the story a lot more. I would love to know more about this house that Charmaine was living in because it is so interesting and we didn't really get to explore it all that much in this book, so if that ever is a thing, I would 100% read it. And overall, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book was Totals All the Way Down by John Green. I don't know how to feel about this book. If this book was 2 separate stories, I would be so into that. But for context, this story follows a girl named Aza. She actually has a diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD, which is very, very well depicted in this book. However, I really disliked Aza. I think that she was really whiny. I loved the story behind this book, like the story that actually happened. If that story was just written in a different book, I would love it. However, this book actually triggered a lot of my own anxieties and it made me really stressed in this time of reading it. And I was also reading Midnight Sun at the same time, which was even more anxious and stressy, and it was just a really bad time just for my own mental health. I think that there's some messages in this book that kind of get resolved at the end, but I think that the mental health side of this book is contentious because on one hand, I'm really glad that there's some awareness being brought and having mental illness being brought into mainstream novels. It's a great thing. However, in this book, it's not really a spoiler, she refuses to take her meds and thinks that that is okay, and I'm so concerned about that being in a mainstream book and having young people reading it feeling like it's okay to not take their meds. That does get resolved at the end of the book, however, it's quite detrimental, and I just don't think it's an okay message to be sending to young people because that is the demographic of this book. In saying that, I think that this is probably my favourite John Green book, which seems like it's not speaking very highly of John Green. However, I think that his other stories were just really lackluster, and I liked the story of this book and I didn't like the characters, which is something that generally I would need to like a book. However, I think this, like, the mystery story of this one kind of makes it stand alone. So again, I'm very, very conflicted about this book. I don't want to read it again, and I probably won't. And I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And as previously mentioned, the next book I read was Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. I think that everybody read this book. I actually have a reading vlog of this that came out last week. So if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts of this, please refer to said reading vlog. I think it's about 15 minutes of me rambling about how stressy Edward is and about how ridiculous this book is. However, I'm glad I read it. Again, probably not going to read it again, but if just for 15-year-old me, I'm glad I did. But again, I have much, much more information and in-depth thoughts about specific parts of the book. It's a bit spoilery, but I have that as my previous video, so please go check it out. I'll leave the link somewhere. Probably just in the description box. Yeah, so I think I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Let It Snow by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and Lauren Miracle. This is just recently been turned into a Netflix movie, which I actually saw, and I will start by saying that they are very different. The first story is about a girl, her name is Jubilee. Her parents get put into prison and she has to go to her grandparents' house. However, there is a train blockage because of a giant storm, and she goes on this little mini journey. That's about as much as I'm going to say about that story. The second one is a group of friends. I can't remember the main character's name. It is blanking just from my brain. But a group of friends, they go on another adventure to try to get to the Waffle House, in which Jubilee has actually just left at the end of her story. And the third story follows a girl, her name is Addie, and she is trying to manage feelings about a breakup that happened recently, just before their 1-year anniversary. I listened to this on audiobook, big surprise. In terms of the stories, I think I liked the first story the most. It was honestly like really not believable. That's what you're gonna get in a young adult book though, which is fair enough. Yeah, just really like circumstantial love, insta love type thing. Wasn't super into that, but it was the most enjoyable story. I really disliked the third story's main character. I thought she was really whiny and self-absorbed, which is the point, but again, it was just, I don't know, didn't mesh with it. And in the second story, I found that following who is who out of the group of friends was really, really difficult. I feel like because the book is so short and there are 3 stories mushed into this, it is really hard to get characters of what and who's intertwining with who. I will say that I actually liked this better than the movie, which isn't the way that this usually happens. Usually if I watch a movie first, I don't generally tend to like the book as much if it's different, because that's what I saw first and that's kind of like what my formative memories are for it. However, I liked this much more than the movie, and I actually liked the movie. So I think I like them as separate beings that are similar. All in all, 3 out of 5 stars. You're almost there. The second last book that I finished in August was The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. I am currently on a Throne of Glass reread kick through so that I can actually finish the series from my TBR. Kingdom of Ash has been sitting there for so long. The Assassin's Blade is a series of novellas that all predate the Throne of Glass story. It follows Selena Sardothien, the Ardalan's assassin. And it goes through some of her early missions within the Assassin's Guild. A lot of trials, tribulations, there's some love in there. I will say that honestly, I believe that Sam is the only person that Selena should ever have been with. I don't like the other males, and I think that Sam just should have been the be all and end all. I found that this book was good. It was heartbreaking. It was very fast paced, very action packed. I did find it a bit tricky to keep up with who the side characters were because the novellas went between those. However, still pretty good. It was really fun to listen to, and I actually felt myself wanting to listen to it, which is something that I hadn't had with the last couple of books that I have listened and read to. And I guess what my final thoughts on this book are is that I love Selena Sardothien and I dislike Aelin. I feel like we just need more of this rather than more of this. And I really miss Assassin Selena. I miss her. She was great. She's really badass. Overall, I gave the Assassin's Blade a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And finally, the last book that I read in August, and I actually, again, surprise, surprise, listened to this one on audiobook. It was About Grace by Anthony Doerr. Oh boy, this book. A thing that I like about this book is that it is really floppy, and I'm sad that I didn't get to read it, like the physical copy. However, I'm glad that I listened to it on audiobook because otherwise I would never have finished it. I actually really didn't like this book. I found it really hard to listen to. It was really slow. The story was just, it felt really pointless and it didn't feel very deep. It was just really shallow, kind of like surface, float along, very typical. I do want to say that just like, first of all, super don't condone cheating. And that's like the main point of this book. They open with him having an affair with this girl who he had a dream about. Oh, sorry, I should tell you what this is about. This story follows a man named David Winkler. He has the ability to dream events that are gonna happen, and it happens really sporadically. This is set in just like normal world. It's not a fantasy or a mystery book or anything like that. It is just our world, and he has this ability to dream. He falls in love with a girl who he meets in a dream, and she cheats on her husband to be with him, and they end up having a child. The book starts basically with David being really concerned that his child is going to drown, and so he goes away to the Caribbean. Just there's so much in that is just not okay. First of all, let's not condone cheating. Let's not make cheating an okay thing to happen. If you have a problem with your relationship, be an adult. Speak about it. If you're not happy, find a way to leave. There are always ways, even if you're in danger. And if you are in danger, seek help. There is always help. There is a solution that does not involve cheating. I just don't condone it. I understand why this book could be loved by a lot of people. It just wasn't my jam. I didn't love it. I found it really hard to read and listen to. I found it hard to listen to, which is, you would think being so passive, but no. Just no. There are like, I mean, overall, my general theme of this book is that I did not like it. However, there were some parts that I did actually like. There was a lot of really nice imagery being described in this, especially around the snowflakes. It was all quite beautiful. And there is some life advice stuff that's in there that I also quite liked, and that was really lovely. Also, I just want to say, Herman, what a champ. But overall, yeah, didn't love this book. Gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. And that is it. That is all of the books that I read in August, which again, lots of books, more books than I've ever read in a month before in my life. Like if you look at it in a stack, that's a lot of pages. Oh God. Yeah, lots of books. I did this. I'm proud. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you made it through to the end, kudos to you, because this has been a long one. I've been talking now for half an hour, and I think like overall, there were a lot of books this month that I didn't like, but that just makes me, I don't know, I feel kind of okay because I've read them and I know. I find comfort in knowing that I've tried to like the book rather than not knowing if I have liked the book, if that makes any sense. Let me know in the comments what you have read this month, or if you have read any of these books and you actually did like them, and I'm more than happy to chat to you about them. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a great day, night, afternoon, whatever time it is where you are, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!